Good hockey afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, October 29th, the Tuesday after the conclusion of the Fall 2024 regular season, in which we completed everything this past Sunday and are headed toward the playoffs this coming Sunday. It means, especially considering it's a U.S. election year, awards voting. It's time to vote in the CSHL Fall 2024 awards, and this video is going to be designed to give you a guide on how to think about voting for these awards and what they mean and the players that are nominated. And with that, that's also a different format that we're going to be using this season. Only a select few players will be nominated for each award. And in previous seasons, we've had everyone eligible for the awards based on basically position and if you played. And in this season, we're going to try something a little bit different, just to reduce the field, simplify it, make it a little bit easier to vote for these awards. And it's not to exclude anybody or kick anybody out, but rather just make it simpler. And of course, there will be an other write-in option for you to cast your vote if the player that you want to vote for any of these awards is not available, and that will get your first place vote. Also going to give a couple shout-outs as well to some of the players that just missed the cut, because personally, I love pretty much all of you guys, and it's so much fun to watch you play. And there's so many people that I'd love to have win these awards, but at the end of the day, only one person can win each. We can have some runners-up, but only one person will take these trophies home. So without further ado, to start in the B League, we will look at the Most Valuable Forward Award. And in no particular order, I want to start with Cheddar Narash, James A. Latter Preserving Church of Latter-day Velocipastors, Acolytes, and Disciples, or Latter Raptors for short. Kind of a late season resurgence for Cheddar, but very, very respectable scoreline for him. 6 goals, 8 assists, helping out his team a lot and leading that team in scoring, I believe. Also want to kind of jump to shouting out his teammate. Yeah, I'm already doing this in a weird order. Jonathan Beachy, 4 goals, 5 assists, hasn't played a lot of ball hockey, but very valuable forward for about a season and a half, couple seasons now. Shout out Jonathan Beachy. Since we're doing the shout outs, let me just jump all over the place. I want to shout out 2 Charlottesville players, Joey Petrolisi and Ray Jasinski. Young Joey has had a phenomenal season, I'd say, for especially his age and how much experience he's gaining. It's just so much fun to watch him play with his forward line mate, Ray Jasinski, who chipped in a couple goals and assists as well. Maybe could have had a couple more this past weekend in that dramatic 4-4 tie with Voltage, but not to be seen. In any case, back to the candidates. Cheddar is eligible to win the award, as is Carson Steckler, who, by all accounts, probably should. 15 goals is a ton of goals, especially considering he only played 10 freaking games. 2 of them are game-winning goals as well. So, I mean, what is there to say about Carson Steckler? This is his 5th season in the league now, and I believe he won Most Valuable Forward in Fall, and came in 3rd in MVP voting to Cheddar Narash, interestingly enough. Moving on, Mark Kolschny, there we go, for High Voltage. Couple huge goals in the game I just mentioned, 4-4 with Charlottesville this past weekend, and has just been a great power forward all season long for High Voltage. I think he should definitely be up for consideration for Most Valuable Forward. Not too much to write home about for Voltage either. His teammate, Sam Rosentreter, also nominated for Most Valuable Forward. He's had a pretty good debut season for High Voltage. A little bit better stat line there than his partner, but it depends on who you ask. If you like goals, then you go with Kolschny. If you like assists, then go with Rosentreter. Let's see. Next, actually, another Voltage player, Dennis Dunworth. Missed a couple games at the start of the season, but still able to put in 7 goals in, I believe, 7 games played. Not exactly sure. Should have put that in the spreadsheet. Only 1 game-winning goal, but I mean, having one is still pretty darn good. Dennis has been a force for the Voltage, so I think he should be worth considering. And then, from Flying V's, just for his face-offs alone, Mike LaFond. 11 goals in, I believe, 9 games. I really do need to have the games played stat up here. Sorry, this is a super professional, high production values all the way through. Mike LeVigne, not picked an A for whatever reason, and he has been dominating B-League so far. Can he and the V's continue that in the playoffs? But that's most valuable forward award. Think creation, passing, scoring, forechecking even. And speaking of that, I want to shout out, another shout out I want to put up is Daniel Brainerd. Brand new to hockey. I don't know how much hockey he's played, but he's been fantastic for the V's. And one of the reasons that this team has been so dominant is their depth. They have just so much to go around and on their second line, and their follow-up players to the Mike LeVignes, Mike Rudolphs, Brandon Brownlows, and of course Mahosky and Ned. Daniel Brainerd has been causing a lot of problems for opposing defensemen, and has not just 5 assists, but a couple really nice assists in those 5. So shout out to Daniel Brainerd and his brother Matt. Hope to see you guys in future seasons. So to recap, I'll have like maybe a list or something. Cheddar Narash, Carson Steckler, Mark Kolschny, Mike LaFond, Sam Rosentreader, Dennis Dunworth, nominated for Most Valuable Forward this season. Congratulations, guys. For Most Valuable Defenseman in B-League, quick shout-outs to start, I suppose. Eddie Ippolito for the Flying V's. Been a pretty quiet production. Ended up having 3 goals and 2 assists, which is quite nice. Good shot blocker, always competitive, always hustles, looks or moves bigger than it looks like he can, and another depth contributor to that V's team. Another reason why they're so good is that depth, and Eddie's been great there. For the Atlanta Raptors, Kyle Pratt, want to shout him out as well. Another CSHL newcomer, has adjusted well to B-League and found himself a nice little D pairing with Marky Skia there, and put in some nice defensive shifts. And especially, God, I already forget which game it was. Freaking diving one-handed backhand swipe to save an empty net goal, make it go off the post. And awesome play. Absolutely awesome play. So shout out Kyle Pratt. Another newcomer, Michael Placido, has been pretty good defensively for his Charlottans, especially this past weekend. Hope to see him in future leagues, and well done, Michael, for holding it down on the back end. And then, of course, not nominated, if you can believe it, because there are just so many candidates in B. So sorry, but Stone Cold Rich Wall, have to nominate him, especially considering how hard he plays at the age he is. He is an inspiration to all of us. And I think we all want to grow up to be Rich Wall. With that, the nominations in how about reverse alphabetical order? From that same team playing defense with Rich Wall. Well, that's not how you spell it. Mike Warren, Captain Mike Warren of Race City River Rats. His team plays not so much better, but clearly better with him. And he's able to provide offense from the back as well. He's his vision, poise, leadership, energy. I mean, what was the goal? I think Nick Russell scored it in their last game of the season to give them third, to confirm that they wouldn't be in the wild card game. And he was fired up. And I think a few people took notice as well. But he's been fantastic defensively. And he always seems to make the right play. He's got that Bill Evans effect where you just can't really get around him. Chris Bain as well. Shout out to Mike. Well, not a shout out. You're nominated for Most Valuable Defenseman. Another Mike Rudolph, also a newcomer to CSHL, made his little debut in the Rec League this past season and has really taken off in the Fall 24 season here. Constantly bombing up the wing from his own defensive zone, creating 7 goals. A lot of those shots came from the point. Very difficult to get around him. It looks like you can shoot around him, but he's always in great position to block shots. I just remembered I should have highlighted exactly what are the reasons to be looking, like what should you look for in candidates for most valuable defenseman. That's what it is really. It's like most valuable forward, creating offense. Most valuable defenseman, the opposite of that, shutting down offense. What do these players do to shut down opposing forwards? And Mike Rudolph is not just phenomenal at shutting down attacks, but launching one the other way, which can be a great defense in and of itself. So Mike Rudolph, definitely a top candidate here for most valuable defenseman. To continue in reverse alphabetical order, Marky Skia. No assists, but an absolute horse back there for the Raptors. Mentioned him earlier with Kyle Pratt. Shout out to Jacob Burns, Cynthia Clay as well. Burns, spoilers, is up for nomination here. They've been a great defensive pair. Ladder Raptors has been just a nice team all season long. And Marky Skia, for me, is the cornerstone of that defense. I think he's done very, very well all season long. And not only that, has a couple of game-winning goals, launching absolute clappers from the point. Shout out Marky Skia. Continuing on, speaking of clappers, Joe P. 11 goals from the back end. 3 of them, including this past weekend, were either a game-winning or game-tying goal. Team not super great stat line, but that's okay. And I mean, he's won the most valuable defenseman award before. He might win it again. He's got a ton of competition this time. But I mean, what can you say about Joe P? Just incredible clapper, great defensively, block shots with his face sometimes, no big deal, and leads with just absolute beautiful confidence. Continuing on, one guy who probably won't win it, not trying to spoil anything, but I think it would be a shame, is this guy for high voltage, James Weber. We need a shot block counter for most of these guys, but especially James Weber. My goodness. And like, how about a shot block quality counter? Like, how many times did we see James Weber sliding all over the rink safely, mind you, which is skillful in and of itself, to block shots to help his team. Only 1 assist on the season, if you can believe it. I thought he got more involved in the offense, and I think he's unlucky to not have at least 1 goal, if not 2. He got a couple chances here and there throughout the season, but he's been phenomenal defensively. So James Weber up for most valuable defenseman. As mentioned earlier, Jacob Burns for Ladder Raptors is also eligible. 8 goals on the season. None of them were game winners somehow, but not to matter. The other thing about Jacob Burns that I think is great as a most valuable defenseman candidate is his ability to quarterback the play from below the goal line, walk it out, make that first pass, maybe stretching across the court diagonally or just going down the wall, just making a good first play. He's been pretty good at that all season long. Good at blocking shots, good at contributing offense, so Jacob Burns up for nomination. And last but not least, Captain Brandon Brownlow, the complete player. He's been there all season long, so it's difficult to say if his team plays better or worse with or without him. But you can tell that the team is it doesn't revolve around Brandon, but he is the focal point of that team, and he allows it to be other players as well. It's just, I can go on and on about Brandon. Amazing shot, great defensively, has decent enough hustle, great vision, fantastic player, great stat line there with 6 goals, 8 assists. Of course, the V's cooked all season long, as you can see by their record there. By the way, the 3 in the middle is a draw, which is where that's supposed to go. It's not supposed to go in the end. Stat makers, take note. So I mean, many reasons why the V's have been very successful this season. Skill, depth, goaltending, vibes, but all of that starts with most valuable defenseman candidate, Brandon Brownlow. So, tough decision for you folks. 7 people up for the MVD award. Brandon Brownlow, Jacob Burns, James Weber, Joe Petrolisi, Marcus Skia, Mike Rudolph, and Mike Warren. But have fun voting, I suppose. Next, most valuable goaltender is going to be fairly easy to talk about. Nick Harris, nominated for sure. Nice, solid season. Debuting in goal for him. Hockey Jesus. Jesus saves, all the puns that you like. Pretty good stat line there. Just low 2s on the goals against average. And the saves and save percentage is not super official, but it's close enough, and it's fairly representative of the season that he had. Also, James Baruso, first overall pick for the Race City River Rats. Didn't have the first overall pick stats, but not to matter. He definitely had first round pick stats for the most part. Maybe a couple unfortunate weeks here and there, but games never really got out of hand for the River Rats. Maybe one time when Mike Warren and a couple other players weren't there, Captain Mike Warren. But he's been, once again, Very nice, serviceable goalie all season long. 3-way tie nearly for most valuable goalie last season, and probably would be in the running for the finalist if it wasn't for Andrew Mahowski. Incredible season, fantastic stat line. As mentioned, one of the reasons why this V's team is so good is Andrew Mahowski's on the back end. Now, here's the thing. You could take that argument and say, well, how much of it is Mahowski and how much of it is the rest of the V's? I mean, by those save counters, even if they are to be believed, you can see that Mahowski has faced less shots than his most valuable goalie nominee competitors. So maybe you can attribute his success to the rest of his team, but I don't want to be too unfair because we've said it on commentary before. I think Colin said it last weekend. Every time you find a way to finally get around this deep V's team, you've got a very confident, positionally sound, agile, focused Andrew Mahowski in net, who should have won MVG last season, by the way. Not bitter about it. And probably will rightfully get the MVG here, if I'm honest. So vote with confidence. Vote for who you think is the best, but it'll be Harris, Baruso, and Mahowski up for MVG. And now for MVP. It's tough to say. Tough to say who goes here. Let me knock this out here for a bit. And put MVP up. There are a lot of good candidates here in B. As far as who the most valuable player is, this is number one in the league. Not most valuable player to their team, as in the sense that, well, this player is proportionally more valuable to their team than this other player is proportionately valuable to their team. But yeah, number one player in the league that you think is better than everybody else. The nominees are, for his clutch game-winning goals, Mark Kolchny. For his good scoreline, Chetan Arash. For his face-off wins, Mike LaFond. For his bombs from the point, Joe Petrolisi. For being an absolute menace and 80 pounds and you are silly and can't stop him, scientists hate him, here is Carson Steckler. For being a clearly A-League player, as people keep saying, Mike Rudolph. And for being an all-around complete player who people have been saying is A-League since winter 23, pretty much, Captain Brandon Brownlow. So, well done, everybody, on your nominations. And that is the B-League taken care of. Take a quick break and go to the A. And we're back with A-League awards now. Most valuable forward up first, as mentioned before. Same thing with the B-League. Who's best at creating, passing, scoring, forward checking, anything in the offensive zone, anything being a defenseman's worst nightmare. I want to start with a couple shout-outs as well, of course. I actually got more than a couple for the A-League. First, Mike Campbell. Quiet 10-goal season. Quiet 2 hat-tricks. Had 2 hat-tricks in a row. There near the end of the season, and his team had a pretty nice record. Picked up 17 points, challenging for third in the end. Almost picked it up, so shout out Mike Campbell. Nice season there. Surprise to some people. Shout out to Zach McKenna. Not nominated here. Didn't play enough games. Did, at the same time, score a lot of goals. That said, 7 of them were on the statistically worst goalie in the league who is fighting off a pretty serious back injury. And if you watch the video, yeah, it looks pretty wild. So shout out Zach McKenna for being an incredible player, but you're not quite enough to be nominated, I think, for most valuable forward. Also, 2 of his forward teammates, Nick Lavella, definite shout out. Great transition from B to A. 2 great goals in the one game against the Gladiators, who had the substitute goalie Keenan Steckler, who was unfortunately left out to dry in those goals. But still great for Lavella jumping up in the play. And he took maybe 1 or 2 games to really settle in, but he's been very fantastic. His confidence is sky high right now, and it's been very fun to watch him play on this Rapids team. Also, shout out Jaden Steckler. Not a far cry from last season, in which he had 5 goals in 7 games or whatever that was. But still a force, still improving, growing, has potential to really shake up the top 5 players in the league. He's gaining this confidence and length and a little bit of size, and what's also interesting, he's regaining and rediscovering the amount of shit that he would talk at pickup with me like years ago, which is honestly lovely to see. We're absolutely here for it. Hockey is not just for having fun, like with your stick and skills and stuff. It's for like having fun with your words and banter and chirps and whatever. So yes, continue everything that you're doing, Jaden. Not quite enough to be nominated here, just because, like how most valuable defenseman in B, there are so many great nominees. Same thing can be said for A here. For the Gladiators, well, there are more than a couple of Ryans. Ryan Kincaid, another great transition, led the Gladiators in points. I think that's incorrect as well. This should be 5 goals, 6 assists. Might be more than a few incorrect stat lines here, so just ignore them when they pop up. I'm not a good journalist. Anyway, Ryan Kincaid, great all-around player for Gladiators, led the team, had a spiritual shorthanded goal where he batted it out of the air and then immediately got one-upped by Cookingham 10 seconds later. Shout out to Cookingham for shutting that down, you bastard. Kincaid's been great transition. He's going to continue to grow and be a great player, and he cannot stop playing hockey, and it's great to watch him play. Another shout out, his teammate Joe Marshall, quietly. That should be, it's definitely wrong. That's 8 goals, 2 assists. It should be for Joe Marshall. Nice season in his first debut, his debut season for CSHL. He's only played in NBHL with us, so great to see him out there, and we'll get you a proper shirt next time, I suppose. Poor Jeremy Hotchner having to sit out all of the season just about with a wrist injury in that first weekend. Now for the nominees to go in. Actually, one more shout out. Sean Burns. And in some ways, I know one person who's going to be really angry that he's not nominated properly. But again, just so many great options and just barely missing the cut, Sean Burns. But my goodness, you want to talk about someone who's also improving a lot. Insane wheels, insane drive, and just the look of fire in his eyes is honestly kind of terrifying. I don't know how you defensemen feel about it. I haven't played against him. But yeah, it's awesome to watch him forecheck and just give absolute fits to opposing defensemen. Dig it out of the corner, whip it across the ring for an assist, maybe even a goal. Even has a game-winning goal as well. Again, just like V's having a deep roster, Sean Burns is a prime example of what depth is meant for the mighty Mullet Men in A-League. So big shout out Sean Burns. Now for the nominees. Also from that team, going in reverse order, a different Ryan Thomas. You cannot ignore this man's stat line. He's slowed down in the last couple of weeks. Thank God, finally. He looks human, right? And I feel like that's wrong as well. I remember he did have 5 goals, 4 assists. Maybe he didn't pick up an assist. In fact, should have my sheet here. Yeah, maybe he didn't. Anyways, up for Newcomer of the Year award for sure. Great first season for the Mullet Men in CSHL, causing lots of problems for opposing defensemen. Well done, Ryan Thomas, and congrats on your nomination. Next up, Kevin Helinski. Missed a couple weeks, still put in 6 goals, 5 assists. Is an all-around menace around the net, as you know. He just scores impossible goals, and basically you're stupid. Click here to find out how. Another CSHL old schooler, Jim Bateman, 8 goals, 7 assists, also missing a couple games, including this past weekend where he played goalie for Nappy, because why not? The game didn't matter, and that gets Bateman his prerequisite 1 game in goal every 6 months so he can assuage that desire just barely enough to where he's actually satisfied. Anyways, great season for Bateman. Nothing super impressive about 8 and 7, if I'm honest, just because it often seemed to run through him. But at the same time, 8 and 7 in 8 games is still very impressive. Goal and assist every game. So well done, Jim Bateman. Big resurgence at the end of the season, and while still being consistent all season long, captain of the Huntersville Hooligans, James Forbes. My goodness, what a season. He just dropped 13 goals, and I'm not sure anybody noticed until the very end. A couple hat tricks, 3 game-winning goals. I don't think one of them was a tying goal. In any case, this might be the season where he gets the MVP, and absolutely could get MVF, unless his teammate, who he loves playing with, Connor Malmstrom picks it up. 8 goals, 8 assists for the young lad, who is the way that Connor strings passes together is preposterous. It should be borderline illegal. You see it coming, and he still slips it through in probably a ball-sized hole. It's really annoying to defend because he's also sprinting at all times. He's also like an F1 car. The way that he can stop and start, the control is insane. And it's so awesome watching him in fall 23 in his debut season, setting up Zach McKenna for MVP, who, to be fair, McKenna had an MVP season, but possibly not without Connor Malmstrom. He possibly has a 3rd place finish MVP season. And now here he is. He was doing it again with Holinsky for a while until Holinsky missed a couple weeks. So shout out to Connor Malmstrom. Very, very well done. That said, Cole Williams exists, who I don't know is 18, might be 18 soon. Just scored 12 goals, doesn't lead the league thanks to James Forbes, but is the only player to reach 20 points, has 4 game-winning goals, and is an all-around menace. Does miss the net a lot, but obviously also hits the net a lot, 12 times, and causes problems for goalies. And he's not that selfish either. He has 8 assists and is very willing to spray the ball around. So that's the most, I think, important part of his game is the creativity, not necessarily the goal scoring or even passing, just natural creativity. Not really sure what he's going to do next. And for a defense, it's got to be a nightmare. And then last, going in reverse alphabetical order, Bobby Arcus. Got to nominate him with 10 goals, as he got a couple there at the end of the season. And 3 of them were game winners. So while Mullet Men have a very deep roster and obviously a fantastic goalie in net and probably the best captain in the CSHL, you don't get there without 3 game-winning goals from your top goal scorer, Bobby Arcus, who was consistent all season long. So there you go, your nominees: Ryan Thomas, Kevin Holinsky, Jim Bateman, James Forbes, Connor Malmstrom, Cole Williams, Bobby Arcus for most valuable forward in A-League. And to switch over to most valuable defenseman. As mentioned before, top defenseman should be someone who shuts down opposing offenses, and definitely had a couple good shout-outs here. One of them might surprise you is Sam Wood, not nominated, pretty much on merit of not having played enough games, but his team clearly plays better with him operating out of the back. And the other thing, too, is I'm not really sure where to put him. I don't know, he works just as well as a forward on our small little rink as he does as a defenseman, but spiritually he's apparently a defenseman, so we'll go with that. His teammate as well deserves a shout out, Mark Stock in the back. Mark Stock added speed to his game, increased his shot power, is still good at blocking shots, has the special move where you hold L1 and push R3 and just immediately chip it out of the zone 80 feet in the air without creating a delay game penalty. He may have done that one time this year. Mark Stock, fantastic defensive salve there for the Wieners. So shout out to him. The other Lavella, shout out, John Lavella, big John Lavella from Mighty Mullet Men. Very rarely put a foot wrong. Very rarely hit the net as well, poor guy. But made a good transition from B to A, just like his son. And has been a very nice player for Mighty Mullet Men, contributing to that depth, as mentioned before. I think I saw him make a half mistake once all season. And he might disagree with this, but, that's how it goes. Well done, John Lavella. Speaking of newcomers in the defensive side, David Gonzalez, not noted for being a runner, had a nice season. Not bad. His first shift, he got an assist and a penalty. And then, just had a nice season shutting things down and trying to, create things. So shout out to David Gonzalez. We want to see you back in goal, of course, and want you to be happy playing the position you love. But that said, you're fine as a defenseman. Consider doing it again. Tough shout out here. Not nominated, Andy Zakowicz. Love watching Andy play. Ball control, passing, distribution is second to none, and that translates into offensive creation all the time, and he's usually pretty solid back there defensively. So Andy Zakowicz, shout out to him. But now for the nominees for most valuable defenseman. We'll go in actual alphabetical order for first name this time. Barely played enough games to be eligible for nomination here. Alex LeVigne. One of the best examples in the league of his team plays better with him. And probably scores goals with him. Only scored 4, but 2 of them were game winners. And Gladiators weren't really known for their goal scoring either. So, again, amazing length, control of his stick, of the play. Very difficult to get around, very difficult to create anything against him, especially if he gets around the boards. He's able to take it away and either make a good distributive pass out of his zone or just walk it out himself and probably rip it top cheese if he so chooses. So Alex LeVigne nominated there. Where the hell are we? Pretty obvious next nomination for going alphabetically. Caleb Brownlow. 2 goals, 7 assists. Points came in kind of the back half of the season. Consistency, competitiveness, speed, poise, passing ability, bunch of shot blocking. It's what you want. He's a former MVD. He will be angry about not having 2, but he can take that up with his captain, who could be that as well. Chris Cookingham, captain of the Rapids. Pretty good in the back for the Rapids. Nice, respectable scoreline. 4 goals, 4 assists. I believe all 4 assists came in the first game. But that said, that makes sense that he would have 4 assists on the season overall. His ability to move around the court is so exhilarating to watch, and he's easily one of my favorite players. Plays a style of game that I like playing better than I ever could. Including the lack of finishing part that sometimes turns into amazing finishing, which is really hard to explain. It's so fun to watch Cookingham play, and he's great at shutting teams down. So Chris Cookingham also nominated. Another captain, as just mentioned, Jack Ingles, also kind of got his points in the back end. 8 goals, 3 assists, and should I even say anything about Jack Ingles? You just watch him play once, and you remember what he looks like. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that he's done all of this all season on a recently repaired ACL is preposterous. And much in the same light of we're inspired by Rich Wall and we want to grow up to be him, Jack, you inspire us all to overcome the difficulties in our lives the way that you have overcome that insanity. Jack Ingles nominated Most Valuable Defenseman. Another CSHL guy who overcomes a lot of injuries, and you wouldn't know it, Jesse Termine. You also might not know that he played defense, more or less, all season, because he covers everything pretty much at all times. Good at shot blocking, great at competing, wasn't super solid in the back, but more than serviceable. And I mean, you want to talk about a top D candidate to put on your team. Jesse Termine's a great way to go. So he is nominated as well. Another J name and newcomer, John Peters. Peters with an S. There we go. Not Peter. John Peters, newcomer. Very nice debut season on Weimer Wieners. I think kind of like just barely made the cut there, to be honest, ahead of his Wieners teammates. But one of the few bright spots for the Wieners. Always confident in the back. Looking to connect with Jim Bateman and take shots himself. Had a couple of nice power play goals, if I remember correctly. Pretty solid in the back, John Peters. And lastly, we do indeed have Pete Becht, who remains one of the top shutdown defensemen, top 3, I'd say, in CSHL. Every single time, it seems, that an attack comes down his wing, he blocks it, or makes it go wide, and he beats you to the corner, and he goes D to D, and the attack's over. And he goes up the wall, and the attack's over. Or he just knocks it off your stick, and the attack's over. And you just barely even notice it. It's in the same way that it's fun to watch Chris Cookingham bomb up the wing, and it's fun to watch Jack Ingles just break dance all over the rink, and it's fun to watch Caleb Brownlow block shots. Like, it's fun to watch Pete Becht do things that are so subtle you barely even know what you're looking at, even if you're trying to look at them, if that makes any sense. Pete Becht nominated for Most Valuable Defenseman. So there's that. To move on to most valuable goalie. 3 candidates here out of 3. First one, Patrick Martin Brodeur. Great start to the season, not a great finish, but that's okay. He did come away with a shutout and had a very respectable season I would say, write home about. Shout out Patrick Martin. And then, as you might expect, Cale Bowman, one of 2 Titans in this goaltending league. Thing about Cale is, and again, the saves are not to be believed, most likely. But and of course, he did miss a couple games. Cale does have 2 shutouts and is responsible for 2 of those. Or actually, yeah. Well, that makes sense. They had substitute goalies for the wins or the games they didn't have a win. I'm rambling. I'm so unorganized. I hate myself. Anyways, Cale Bowman, fantastic season. All things considered, very rough set of circumstances in front of him with a newer team and trying to find their identity. And poor Jeremy Hotchner is on the sideline, and bless him for showing up every weekend and leading the team. But yeah, tough. Very tough when you don't have your captain out there to go follow. And Cale has stopped a lot of shots and got his goals against average down to a pretty nice level. But of course, the third nominee, Tim Hickey, 2 shutouts, unless it was 3. I think 2 is correct. Yeah, 2 should be correct. Good save percentage. Didn't face a lot of shots from Mulletman, so that's where it comes down to opinion. Do you think that Cale was better because he faced a lot of shots and stopped most of them, or do you think Tim is better because the number of shots that he faced, he was able to stop? Tim will tell you he doesn't deserve it because he loves his teammates and he's a lovely guy. And I don't know, Cale might say the same thing if you're in that position for sure. But yeah, it's up to you. Patrick Martin, Cale Bowman, Tim Hickey, the nominees for most valuable goalie. So now for the A-League MVP. Only a few candidates here actually eligible for the MVP. To transition from Tim Hickey on the Mulletmen, we may as well stay right there. It's Tim Hickey, one of the nominees for A-League Most Valuable Player. Also from that same team, his captain, Jack Ingles, on a torn ACL only a few months. What was it, March, April that he got a surgery? My goodness. I think it was March. ACL, very healed, back to his Jack self, probably even a better version of himself than before. Fantastic player, Jack Ingles. Another captain, Jim Bateman. 8 goals, 7 assists, can't shy away from that. Had a pretty good season, deserves a few MVP nods at least. Another captain, James Forbes, 13 goals, leading the league. Could this be the first time that Forbes captures Charlotte Street Hockey's MVP award in, geez, what is it, 7 seasons for him now? Something like that? Maybe 6? I don't know. Also, Caleb Brownlow, fantastic defenseman, valuable for his team, puts in a good couple goals, blocks a shitload of shots, probably makes you angry. Why not? Connor Malmstrom, absolute menace, great stat line. Maybe, I mean, Forbes is scoring the goals, but maybe the number one reason why Hooligans have been so good this year. Ended up only finishing second, but still, that 6-1 record, 6-1-2 record is pretty good. And of course, to make the decision even more difficult, the youngster, Cole Williams, JJ's Bombers. 12 goals, 8 assists, the only 20-point getter on the season, 4 game-winning goals. Absolute menace, ridiculous shot when he actually hits the net. But don't let that detract from the fact that Cole has had an outstanding season this year. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. As a total mulligan, I might actually add a couple players after this recording, which would be really dumb, but we're doing it live. So there you go. There's your awards overview. Also, completely forgot the JJ Sportsmanship Award. How could I? All players will be eligible for that award. It can go to anybody that you choose. The description, if you don't know, is in the title. It's sportsmanship. On, off the court. You could think of it as your favorite player's favorite player award. And I think maybe the most important thing about the JJ Award is this is a player who's fun to play with and against. Doesn't matter if you're playing with or against. And that's the best way, I think, to think of the JJ Award. Because if you didn't know JJ D'Amato, he would talk an immense amount of shit. And it would be so funny, no matter which side you were on. And maybe it would irk you if you were if he was talking shit to your team or something like that. But at the end of the day, he was incredible at dropping banter, and there are more than a couple players like that. It doesn't have to be the top banter award, but someone who plays the game the right way, tries hard, is respectful, kind of stays out of the penalty box, if not totally stays out of the penalty box. Is a joy to be around. Your favorite player's favorite player, however you want to think about it. That's the essence of the JJ Award. Well, there you have it. That, for real, is the Fall 2024 Charlotte Street Hockey League Awards overview. Make sure you go vote now. Make sure you go vote in the U.S. election if you're over 18. So sorry, minor line on JJ's Bombers. Cole Williamson up there. And we will see you this coming Sunday.